bad for her because I spend a fair amount of time up at this podium, and I have a lot to wonderful things to say. Wonderful things to say. Terry Peck, I need to start off right away. Yes, absolutely. I need to start off by saying a couple of personal comments, and then I will kind of go into the historical background of the interview that we received as a part of the process. But first, let me begin by saying Terry, and she knows this, is one of my favorite people of all time. There's never a time that when you see each other, when we bump into each other and we talk, I don't feel better for I always feel better for having the conversation. And sometimes it's something because I learned something because she's just a remarkable wealth of knowledge and just such a wonderful person. And she does so many things for our community that really is in very much an unsung hero type scenario. And I'm about to tell you about this. But if for no other reason than to just kind of, when you get a good visceral reaction from people when somebody gets nominated, I want to tell this quick story. The process for nominations is by ward, as you can tell. And so when I got the email that said, send in your nominee's name, and I quickly sent over Terry's, the staff's response was, yes, with exclamation points. And so I thought, yeah, I chose the right person. This was an easy choice. And it's not just because she's done wonderful things, but also because anyone who has met her knows that she really is truly a wonderful person. Now, I'm going to tease her a little bit, though, because the write-up that Jay did, which is excellent, which is a part of the interview process that he does so wonderfully, as I started to read through it, I said, yep, this is Terry, because it started off with a little history lesson. Mostly about St. Vincent de Paul. But there are there's many things she does in the community, but there's two significant items that she does, events that she takes care of. She runs the St. Vincent de Paul Society. Those of you who are familiar with St. Maria Goretti Parish, that's not far from here. It's one of the longest tenured and most successful charity organizations that the church has. And in addition to that, the other thing that I often recognize her for, and when I think of voting, I think of Terry, she's the judge of elections in Ward 4. And so anyone who has ever volunteered at one of these locations understands that this is probably one of the most unsung events or heroes in that room that you can imagine, especially in today's day and age. That is not an easy scenario. The people who vote and leave. The people who are annoyed come talk to Terry. That means she has a very long day, in addition to long days in advance of that, preparing and then juggling the interests and concerns of others. That day alone warrants an award, I can assure you. But she does so much more. So let me tell you a little bit about St. Vincent de Paul and her contributions to it. So here's the history lesson I learned. In the early years of the 19th century, a group of Catholic university students in Paris met regularly to discuss the plight of the poor in the city. One day, a visitor to that group issued them a challenge. What else do you do besides talk, he wanted to know. Well, the weight of that question drove the students to action. And in 1833, they founded a group called the Conference of Charity. Members would visit the homes of the poor to determine their needs, which included basic necessities, food, shelter, clothing, firewood, but also extended education, medicine, and other services. Their charity was based on the example of St. Vincent de Paul, who's the namesake for the charitable organization, a French priest who realized God had called him to work with the poor. Eventually, the Conference of Charity rebranded itself as St. Vincent de Paul Society, which today has 800,000 members, which I did not know.
In 153 countries.
Oh, in 153 countries, okay. 800,000 members worldwide, including 100,000 in the United States, divided into 4,000 conferences, giving leadership to 40-plus conferences in the 5-county Philadelphia region, and Hatfield resident Terry Peck, who's the local conference, is based in St. Maria Goretti. I'm a St. Maria Goretti parishioner, if you haven't figured that out by now. And so I'm very pleased to have her represent our church as well. So the challenge issued by the visitor to that group in Paris nearly 200 years ago still resonates with her. When asked, what do you do besides talk to prove that the faith you say that you have is important to you, her response, one of the things St. Vincent taught us is that the poor suffer more from a lack of organization than they do from a lack of charity. Nearly everyone is willing to help if they trust the process, and they only trust the process if it's organized, which means the people who run it need to be organized in order to attract the people to contribute not only their time and their treasure, but also their good wishes. At St. Mary Goretti and other conferences, the process is to indeed organize. When someone calls the church for help, a member of the society team calls the person back to make contact. More often than not, 2 members of the group will arrange to visit a person or a family member. And as Terry said, we've mostly gathered additional information so we can determine if and how we can help. It's significant that they do not call these contacts clients, but they call them neighbors. So once the visit is complete, the group meets weekly to pray for those who come in contact with and discern how best to help. The conference does not make loans or direct gifts, but often their help takes the form of helping a neighbor find financial or other resources. Sometimes, Terry has said that they hold the hand of a neighbor while they pursue the help that they need to make themselves sustainable. So, you know, I'm very familiar with St. Vincent de Paul. I'm very familiar with the annual walk that she runs. My family and I have done that over the years. And each time I think of the organization and its charge, I think of those moments when she and others sit at a kitchen table of someone who is struggling financially and helps them figure out what the resources are that are necessary for them, not to just fix what's going on at that moment, but over a long period of time. And then to continue that relationship, it really is quite a giving moment that just continues on and on. Terry has said, we try not to put Band-Aids on things. If there's a shipwreck, the first thing you do is throw them a life preserver, but that doesn't get them to dry land. What we do is throw them a life preserver and then figure out how to help them get to dry land. That's a really important thing. So in addition to overseeing the process for a local conference and other conferences in the region, Terry also helps the group with fundraising. She and her local team participate in the national St. Vincent de Paul fundraisers, such as the annual Walk for the Poor, which I just mentioned, which has raised some $27 million over 15 years, but also adds to their own local spin. St. Mary Goretti's team has had a member who excels at creating raffle baskets, so much that a recent concert over St. Patrick's Day weekend raised more funds for than the concert itself. That's extraordinary. Her St. Maria team also conducts food drives to help restock local food pantries as well as other service projects. And I know that this is some of her St. Vincent de Paul team here, by the way. So as I mentioned before, Terry's service to the Hatfield community extends beyond just the charitable work of St. Vincent de Paul Society. She also serves, as I mentioned, as the judge of elections for Ward 4-1 and 4-2, well, I guess officially 4-1. But quite frankly, we have these precincts 4-1, 4-2, they're at the same location. Terry's in charge of Ward 4. And no offense to the judge of elections for 4-2, but Terry is the go-to person. And that's over at Penfield Middle School. She claims this is a hereditary position, by the way. I've heard this story many times because her family has been in the area, and she has been in the area for many years. The family's been in the area since the 1950s. I know her mom served as the election clerk for many, many years, and we talk about that often. So Terry and her family moved to Hatfield in 1956. Before there was any public water or sewer system. So think about that, commissioners, for a second. Right? We talk about these things, and it was even before that. She has fond memories of the estate of the George S. Snyder when it was still located on Market Street in the borough. And it says here to ask her about free chicks and rabbits that they used to hand out at Easter time. I didn't know that. Ice skating at Allbox Pond, and the Memorial Day and July 4th fireworks at the Hatfield Racetrack, for which she and her family had front row seats at their home on 40-foot road. So I cannot express enough how much our township owes to Terry, and for the unrecognized efforts that she's put into not just St. Vincent de Paul, but also the judge of elections and so many other things. It is my great honor to have not only nominated her, but to award her with our Outstanding Woman for Ward 4. Congratulations. Thank you.
And my only comments are to introduce some of my St. Vincent de Paul people, Vicki and Donna, Joanne, Rosemary, Donna, Lorraine. Rosemary makes the most extraordinary gift baskets that you would ever want to see. And Vicki used to be our treasurer. Now she's working on a project that we refer to as OIN, which is Ongoing Income Assistance, where we helped a family, a young single mother, with rental assistance for a year, and coupled that with some educational programming, which took her out of, we hope permanently, out of generational poverty, and gave her the skills that she needed to move on to a more successful life for herself and her child.